I believe in giving credit where credit is due. So before we get into the episode, we are going to name our sponsors. So the sponsors of season 4 are Levo Oil. They were gracious enough to give us a home infuser to be able to make some amazing recipes this season. If you are someone who has been wanting to make infusions at home a little bit easier, definitely check out shop.levooil.com and see if there's something you just have to have in your kitchen. In addition to Temperance Home and Bar. I love Melissa. Melissa has been a true sponsor of our show, working on almost every season with us, and I just love her Botanica. Melissa goes above and beyond to ensure that all of her clients leave super duper happy and are in a better spiritual place than when they came. Please check out the show notes so you can follow her on social media and check out her Etsy page. Let's get into the episode. Hi everyone, you're listening to another episode of Tu Tia Bruja. I'm Bex Carlos, your host. I, for one, am feeling kind of heavy. I don't know if this is something you are dealing with, but we currently have 4 planets in a water sign, 4 planets in an air sign. What that means is that you might be feeling like your emotions and your ideas, your thoughts at war with each other right now. You might just be feeling really anxious, overwhelmed. And I mean, I'm personally always anxious and overwhelmed, but I'm processing a lot of realizations regarding like my creative paths and collaborating with people. And I think sometimes that's why I create on my own, because it can be so hard to create with another person. But it's important to realize that collaborations, being connected to other spiritual witchy beings, is so important, you know? And one other reason that I've been feeling particularly heavy as of late is I'm sure we all know that a particular individual, I won't say her name, but a particular individual is doing a tequila line. I'm not on board with it, obviously. I think if you listened a few episodes back to the episode Tequileros Don't Sell, I made it very clear that the money should stay in Mexico. And unfortunately, with a lot of these celebrity companies, I mean, like, the thing is, it's foreigners coming in and using Mexican resources to make money. And it costs $52,000, 1 million pesos, to get a permit to have your tequila registered and approved and, you know, whatever. That's so much for the average person in Mexico. It just doesn't seem realistic. And so it just makes sense that foreigners can come in and just profit and profit and profit and profit. And it truly breaks my heart, because it's like, how is this any different than the fucking Spanish to Mexico? How is this different than the fucking French? How is this different than any of the fucking colonizers that had a hand in what they've done to the land that is Mexico? So it's just really heartbreaking. And, you know, with everything going on, it's just really difficult, because this has been an ongoing problem since 96, when Sammy Hagar started, Chamawamba tequila or something. So it's almost a little bit laughable now that everyone's so riled up. And I think it also maybe says a little bit about society that we're so mad when a woman is doing it. I digress. But yeah, this has been a man's game for a really long time. This has been a American celebrity man's game for a really long time. So I'm glad that people are finally mad. I'll just say that. And so I'm going to be letting go all of that negative energy. It's the full moon as I record now, but tomorrow at 6:11 my time, I'm Central Standard Time, located in St. Louis, you know, so depending on where you are in the other places, there is going to be an eclipse for 14 and a half minutes, and eclipse water is really good for prosperity, and if you're trying to remove things from your life, just a lot of goodness, you're trying to like bring it in, change. So I suggest that to you, especially if you need to do shadow work. That's especially good for you. I'll be doing it. I know I've been talking about my Patreon more, so we've started doing something called Luna Llena Unions. So every full moon, there will be something. So technically the full moon is now, and we're not doing that, but it will be ongoing because the eclipse, you know, happens a little bit more on a rare occasion. And I'm so excited to be doing it as my first event. I want to use some of that for skincare, I think. Which reminds me, today's guest was so lovely. Iyana Edouard came on the show. She is the owner, founder of Kush Cute. In addition to this hydrating, yes, her pun, I love it, hydrating skincare line, she also is a CBD and cannabis content creator, marketer. She has a podcast called Wine, Weed, and Weave, where she talks to women of color in the cannabis industry. She is like myself, is trying to make those connections with all different types of people of color because together we are stronger. I'm just so excited. She just felt like an old friend, and I think you're going to get that vibe from the conversation. So let's get into it. Something that I really care about is both skincare. I love cannabis. I love magic. So today I have Iyana on the show, who is the founder of Kush Cute. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I would love to take it back a little bit before we talk about the business and everything. I want you to tell me about the first time you remember using cannabis.
Oh man, I love that question. I'm trying to remember now. I'm like, I remember it clear as day, and I couldn't remember. That's how you know I smoke a lot of weed. I was 18. It was a little later in my life. I never smoked weed in high school. There were definitely stoners in my high school, but I had nothing to do with them. And I just had no interest. I just didn't really care. People who smoked weed, do your thing. I just didn't really need to do it. But for some reason, when I was 18, one of my close friends, she was smoking weed. She got her own apartment. So I always was just smelling it. It was just always usually around me. And I just became curious naturally. And this friend, she was so sweet. She introduced it to me in a very step-by-step process. So she gave me the little shitty weed, the little gross kind of Reggie weed at first. So I knew what quality weed was versus not good quality weed. But I definitely remember having good quality weed for the first time and just feeling just so calm and relaxed. I have anxiety, and it was the first time I felt like my anxious thoughts weren't just filling my brain. And it was just great. I just was something is happening. This is making me feel better. At the time, I was diagnosed with anxiety as well. I already knew I had this, but I was formally diagnosed with it. So I didn't want to take Xanax. I didn't want to start taking any sort of prescription. And when I tried cannabis unintentionally, it kind of calmed it. And I was okay, well, this is doing this with my brain. I'm going to keep trying it. And over time, I just figured out what I liked, what I didn't like. I know I don't like sativas all that much, especially not at night. But ever since then, I've just been kind of in love. It's just my favorite plant in the world. I say that to my cannabis plants literally sitting right next to me growing.
Do you name them?
I have one. Her name is Riri. She's a purple Kush.
That seems appropriate.
Exactly. I was Rihanna looks great in purple. Purple Kush, Riri.
So the reason I asked that is because I have friends who are green witches, and they say that if you name your plants, especially if you name your plants after one of your friends, you can check on it. And if it really starts to wilt or something's wrong with it, that's a good indicator that you should check on your friends.
Oh, I've never thought of that. I've named all my plants after my favorite female artists because I want them to get as big as them. I want them to grow and be thick and rich. So
listen, that is intention growing at its finest.
All my plants that are named after rappers have done really, really well. My Cardi B plant, she's doing great. I have a Lizzo. She's big and luscious.
As she should be.
Exactly.
I love that you are very intentful when you're growing, which says really great things about your plants. So let me ask you, when was your aha moment where you're I like cannabis, I like skincare, I like this, maybe I should do this? When did that happen for you?
I don't even think I realized that happened until after it was happening. I have grown up in a household full of beautiful women with beautiful skin. I'm part Caribbean, I'm part Haitian. So using fruits and vegetables and just natural things has been very normal in my household. My grandma has a giant garden. So if I had a burn or if I needed something for my face, she'd be okay, go outside, go cut the aloe. I think naturally my whole life, I didn't even notice until I started doing stuff in cannabis that I had a natural attraction to plants, and that I always knew that plants were healing and that they can do things for us. And then when I started having cannabis, of course, I put kind of that together. I was okay, cannabis is a plant. This is another plant medicine. Oh, my aloe plant. Oh, my so-and-so plant. Okay. I always from the start, I understood that cannabis was just a plant medicine. I never really looked at it as a drug. I was okay, this is just another plant that I can use to heal. And I did my research and I figured out that you can use hemp oil and CBD oil on your skin. I wasn't really seeing handmade hemp and CBD products. at the time when I started my company in 2016. So I just took the things that I like to make and the sugar scrubs and the coffee scrubs that I made for myself at home. I just added hemp and other things with cannabis in it. And I was like, okay, let me see what these do together. And they worked really well. I got a really good response on them the first time I put them on Etsy. And I just kept doing it. And I just started just creating more recipes and more formulas. I'm a big herbal nerd. So I have a lot of books on like herbalism and plant medicine. And I apply those books when I read in those to my formulas as well. And then I just incorporate cannabis. And like I said, I didn't notice until after I started creating these products in this company. I was like, oh, okay. I love plants. I love plant medicine. I love skincare. I've grown up around all these beautiful Black women with, such young and supple and beautiful skin. And it's because they've used this plant medicine or similar plant medicines on their skin. And now it's great to have my grandma, whose beauty I admire. She now uses my products, and it made it all kind of click to me where I was like, oh, it's her. She was inspiration behind this in her garden. And it all just makes sense. It came full circle.
That's so amazing. And it's funny because it reminds me, I had a friend of mine, Metzgley, who was on podcasts like very early on, but they had said this thing about how like they're a hoodoo root worker and they feel a lot of power working with the same plants that their ancestors worked with. And it's kind of like the same with you, like when you have that moment where you're like, oh, this is where I learned it from, it's always been, something that I'm used to. It really, makes the product so much more, in my opinion, valuable. You know what I mean? Because there's so much more behind it.
Yeah, I think people can kind of tell that. Like, I still make everything small batch handmade. I still create every formula myself, and I give it to friends and family, and I have them try it and give me their feedback. I have the most sensitive skin on earth. So I try stuff, and if it makes me break out, then I cut it and I try something else. And everything I make is still 100% plant-based, and I'm going to continue to do that. It might not have a very long shelf life, but I really believe in like continuing to use the plant as your like solid foundation to making yourself feel good and look good. The whole kind of purpose behind my brand is, bring women back to the idea of using plant medicine to make themselves look and feel good on the inside and out.
What's your favorite product that you carry in your shop right now?
I love the beauty oil. It is definitely our number one seller. People have hit me up. Men love it for their beards. I didn't even know you can use it in your beard, but apparently you can. It's great. It's like a multi-purpose facial oil. It was my first facial oil that I ever made. Really simple ingredients like rose water and of course hemp oil and like almond oil and aloe and things like that. But I use it probably every day. I like mix it in my sunscreen. I like put it on at night. And then I have some other similar oils coming out soon with a little bit more CBD in it. So they actually have that like full anti-inflammatory effect.
Have you learned so much more about skincare through this whole journey?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like all natural skincare. During quarantine, I had a bunch of time as we all, those first 6 months of quarantine, we were like, okay, well, what do we do? So I stocked up on books about like skincare and herbal skincare and all natural skincare. And I did like online herbalism classes. I'm like, I'm gonna just, I have all this time. I guess I'll just figure out how to make, stuff that I want to put on my face.
See, you were productive.
I was for like 6 months. And after that, but
I'm with you though. It's funny. I always joke because like at the very start of this pandemic, like I didn't go anywhere. I did not leave I was a good like person.
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere. I just got this herbal butter maker, the Dabix herbal butter maker. It makes infused butter in like an hour. It usually takes me 24 hours, but it makes you like 3 sticks of infused butter in like an hour. It's beautiful.
I've heard of that one. I actually just got Levo.
Oh yeah, that one is really good too.
I'm so excited to try it. I'm planning a 3-course meal. And so now that I have it, the friend's house that we're doing this at, I'm like, well, what if we just have like a slumber party and like we have this really dope meal with all this like weed infused food?
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because I think like it started off as just like doing a photo shoot for that, but now we're all kind of coming together. And on my Insta, I posted like a little bit about like the first 2 courses. So I'm like really excited about it.
So that sounds like a good time.
It will be fun. As it's amazing that there are all these different ways to like consume, in what way, as someone who's been in the industry a few years, in what way could consumers be a little bit more aware? Maybe aware isn't the right word, but at least maybe try to make the efforts to be more ethical about their consumption. Because I mean, like we were talking about this before the cast, it is an industry that for so long, condemned people of color, but now it's like you see white people reaping the benefits of it. So how can consumers be better about being more ethical in their consumption?
That's a great question. I love that question so much. I don't have all the answers. I wish I had all the answers to this, but some that kind of popped into my head is, when you go to dispensaries, talk to them and go, where are the Black owned brands? Just be like, hey, I would like to see more Black owned brands here. And if they don't want to have Black owned brands, ask them why. And if they don't have an answer, then ask someone else why. And if they don't have an answer, go shop somewhere else and go ask them. I did it literally probably a couple of weeks ago where like I got a delivery from some, one of these delivery companies out here, and they sent me a survey, to give them a rating. In the notes, I said, I would love to see more Black owned brands on your menu. Send. And I sent it, and they sent me a little note back and said, we loved your note. We will, look into this. Also, like, equity programs are a great thing. If you live in a state where like you own a cannabis business or someone else knows one, and then you also happen to know there's an equity program there, or there's usually some sort of nonprofit in the area, or at least in the state in general, that focuses on making sure that people of color are able to get into the industry, make sure they connect with each other. I was explaining to someone, Kind Colorado is a great organization because they specifically connect cannabis dispensaries and companies with people of color who want to get in the industry. Minorities for cannabis, I think that's how you say it. I think I'm forgetting a couple words, but they're another organization. There's lots of organizations that you can reach out to, and you can ask them questions, and you can tell them like, hey, I have a dispensary in my area. How do I connect you with them to make sure we get more people of color in the store? How do I, get involved with your organization so I can maybe get a job in the industry? Those are the people that are going to have the resources and the means to help more and more of us get into the industry. But if you're not in the industry and you're just like, I just want to be more, ethical about my purchases, ask those questions. If you see a Black owned brand, just buy it. I don't care how much it is. I've paid a very expensive price for Black owned Ace, but they're smaller operations. So you have to know that they have to pay more to operate and create products. And every dollar that you spend with them goes back to them. So definitely just be like, hey, we're the Black owned brands, or the minority owned brands, or the Latina owned brands, or the Asian owned brands. Can we see more of those here, please? Thank you. And if they say no, then go shop with somewhere else, please.
And be vocal about it too, because not that I'm in the business of shaming people, but sometimes shame is a great motivator.
It's a great tool, actually. It's a good tool. If we go on pages too, like Instagram pages, if you see brands that you like cannabis brands, and you don't see like people of color on their feed, go in their comments and ask that.
You don't even have to be aggressive about it, but you could be like, hey, X shop, I've noticed you don't have any POC-owned brands or products. We would like to see that. I think the thing too is that everyone, at least in my experience, I feel like so many people feel like in order to make a point, you have to be combative, but sometimes you don't. Like you just have to start a conversation, You
just have to be curious, I think. You just have to just ask a lot of questions. That's why I'm like, if they're like, oh, we just don't because we don't have any in the area, then do the research yourself, because most of the time that's not true.
Yeah. And also just think of yourself like a 2-year-old, right? Just keep asking why.
Yeah, just be like, why? What? And if they don't have an answer, or they don't want to tell you, then go shop somewhere else.
Exactly. With really finding a plant that kind of speaks to you and helps make life a little bit easier, would you say that that's kind of helped your spiritual practice? Do you think you're a very spiritual person?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely consider myself spiritual. I believe in God. I do, read the Bible, but I also read lots of spiritual books as well. I think they're one and the same. Lots of the messages that I've seen in multiple spiritual books I've seen in the Bible. I grew up very Christian, but as I got older, I just was like, this all sounds the same to me. If you read all the books, they're all pretty much the same message in terms of being a good person. And I didn't realize that, and I wasn't able to open up to that idea, I think, until I had cannabis. Like I said, I had cannabis when I was 18, around the same time that I was going to college. And I think because I tried this thing around the same time I was going away on my own, made me more able to open up to other people's ideals and open up to different conversations. As before, I was very just conservative, mostly out of fear of just stepping outside of my comfort zone. But when I did it, I think with cannabis, I think I started doing it with everything else too. And the 18-year-old girl is a totally different person to who I am now.
It's wild how those experiences of going away to school can change you in more ways than just the academic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Do you consider yourself a witch?
Ooh, I love that question. I'm gonna say yes. I almost said no because like there's a bad connotation to that word, but I'm gonna say yes because I don't think there's a bad connotation to that word. And we joke about it in my house all the time that I'm a witch, my mom's a witch, my sister's which we all are very powerful, magical beings. We're very powerful manifestors in my family. We do it all the time and it's crazy. But that's the great part about like being a powerful creator and knowing you have that power and growing up in a house full of other powerful creators. Because I see them literally manifest things and create things just by thinking about them or speaking them out loud. And then I see it happen and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do it too. And then I do it and they're like, oh my God, you did it. And I think that energy is great. We feed off of each other. We're a house full of witches. So I'm going to say, yes, I'm a witch.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode. You know, you'd said this earlier. It really does feel like just two friends talking. That's the whole vibe of this show.
That's great.
Two potential Diaz just like sitting and talking about their life journeys because one day we're going to be the ancestors. You know what I mean?
I feel like we were sitting at the kitchen table, like just had a joint and like a smoothie or something.
Iyana, how can we support you? You know, can you tell us some shops that maybe your products are in right now so we can seek them out or even maybe like tell people to carry them?
Of course. So I have a lot of different places you can find me. If you want to just find like me personally, the work that I do in the industry, not only do I own a business, I'm also a cannabis and CBD content specialist and marketing manager. I currently work for a couple different companies in the space and I'm really grateful to have those opportunities. And I'm always open to working with and talking to other women of color and men of color in this space. I specifically really love to do work with other minorities in cannabis. I'll work with anybody, but I really am this year have been focusing on working with people of color who want to get in the industry or who are currently, you know, business owners and are struggling. You can find me and my marketing work and how to like contact me about that on my Instagram at the marijuana Iyana. That's Iyana and then marijuana. And he's spelled, you know, like marijuana. And through my website, MJI Canna Marketing, that's just also spelled how you say it. And for Kush Cute, I have a temporary shop right now because, you know, compliancy is a bitch. So I have to like go through a bunch of legal things before I can get my official shop up and running again. And then at Kush Cute on Instagram. Like I said, I'm working on like a stronger like CBD version of the beauty oil. I've been using that for a couple weeks now and my skin has been loving it. So I'm excited to release that. And I have less CBD like calming shea butter balm that I'm working on. And a sugar lip scrub. I have had this before, but I'm bringing it back in a new formula that's a bit more improved, has a little bit more peppermint in it. So yeah, I think that's all I have to promo for now.
We'll include all the links and stuff in the show notes. Anybody who's looking for, you know, hydrating skincare should find it. That was the episode. All the ways to support Iyana are in the show notes. And I just want to remind you that Patreon is a great way to just get a little bit more witchy. I post a lot of recipes on there. My first episode that will be focusing on more of a deeper dive into myself, who I am, how I got on this magical journey, because I think that it's you have a lot of things in your life that bring you to the point where you accept your magic. And especially I'm someone who lives in my practice every day. I'm always learning and expanding, and I talk to people who ask me how I do it, like how I continue to use magic on such a regular, and I'm like, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. And for that reason, I think that I'm very strong in my practice. I love my practice. Magic is so important to me, connecting to people who, you know, love plant medicines, who are into energy work, who, you know, are just using the tools of our ancestors to heal ourselves. Like, it's so amazing. It's so beautiful. We're decolonizing in our own way. We're fucking decolonizing ourselves, y'all. And it's the most important and beautiful transformation you'll truly have. You'll be so much more connected to self and the ancestors, and it's truly beautiful. I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons. So we got Ashley, we got Melissa, we got Berto, we got Annie. I love all of you. You are truly amazing, and I appreciate all of the wonderful things and knowledge and conversations we've had, and I'm going to keep creating content for you. Thank you. Y'all help make this easier, and I just can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for listening. You can keep up with me in other places such as Instagram at BexbyCaston, The podcast is at Tutia Bruja, and you can check out my website if you want to collaborate, work together, be on the show, whatever. Let's meet, let's be friends. www.bexbcasting.com. All right, well, hopefully I see you at the next Luna Llena Unions. If not, we'll have a great time on another episode of the podcast. Thanks. I love you. Bye.
Yeah.